Hi, my name is Brian Newman, and I'm moderating today's panel on the future of farming, part of the Future Forward series from Amazon and the Climate Pledge. I want to start off with introductions. My name is Brian. I run a company called Subgenre, and I'm a member of the Brand Storytelling Network and have attended many years in a row. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I'll introduce first Hillary Sparrow from Amazon.
Hello, my name is Hillary, and I lead content and communications at the Climate Pledge. I'm a documentary filmmaker turned comms and marketing pro, and this series was actually my brainchild, and so it's so exciting to see it come to life and have everyone here and get to talk to you about it. And I'll kick it over to the director of the film, Laura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Checkaway. I'm the director and I'm a documentary filmmaker. And yeah, I'm so proud of this film and I'm so happy to be here with Sarah and Stephanie and everyone to talk about it. And Brian and Hillary, thank you guys both so much for thinking of me and bringing me on.
Great. And we'll go to Sarah next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Carlson. I work for this awesome organization called Practical Farmers of Iowa, and we're featured in the film. And we're so excited to just share more about what farmers are doing on the land and ways that we support them, especially with support from Unilever. And so I'll kick it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, I'm Stephanie Milley Grant with Unilever. I lead all of our sustainable and now regenerative agriculture programs in the US and Canada. So I get to work with our brands, our procurement, who does the buying of our ingredients, our suppliers down to the farmer level to design and implement all of our programs.
Thanks, everyone. Well, the series is great and the film is wonderful, and everyone who's watching this will have seen it. But the first question is really for Hillary. Can you give us a little background on what exactly is the Climate Pledge and how's it related to Amazon? And then also, why did you decide to make this series? You said it's one of your brainchild, so tell us more about it.
Yes, okay. So the Climate Pledge, so I work for Amazon, and the Climate Pledge is Amazon's commitment to be net zero carbon by 2040. And it was started about 3 years ago. And it was about Amazon wanted to make a sustainability commitment, a broad public sustainability commitment. And what the team realized as they were doing it is that there was no way Amazon would be able to reach their net zero carbon goals without having other companies come along with us. And so we started the Climate Pledge to get other companies to also commit to net zero carbon by 2040. And I joined the team relatively early on. And the thing that was just so kind of a complete mind shift for me was being a part of corporate climate action. I realized there's so much goodness happening. Like, yes, it's a desperate and intense situation, and many times it feels so far beyond our reach because we can't control the world and all the change that needs to happen. But being on the corporate side of things, it really gave me a window into the technologies and the innovation and the focus that many companies have on driving change. And so what I wanted to do with this series is pull the curtain back on that. And I wanted very intentionally to do a documentary series because I thought we needed to hear from award-winning filmmakers, and we needed to hear the real stories and go on the ground and really learn about the change that's actually happening. So that's how the series came together.
Great. And what's really interesting about this series is something you don't see very often. You're working for Amazon, yet here you are making a film that also features another company, Unilever. So tell us a little bit more about that and how that came together.
Yeah, I keep wondering when someone's going to be like, why? But the thing is, in order to inspire other companies to join us, it's not just about telling Amazon's story. Amazon has a great story, and we're working with tons of different companies to drive change. And we have a film that's focused on that, the future of transportation. But I also think it's really important to find other leaders in the space and tell their stories so that they can inspire other companies. But yeah, it's a really different way of working. Unilever's been an incredible partner, and it's pretty cool because we're working together to figure out, how we're rolling it out to the world.
I want to dig into more about those specifics in a second, but first, you decided to work with, as you said, award-winning filmmakers, and one of them is Laura Checkaway, who's here with us. And Laura, I've known for a few years, to be honest, through her films, which are award-winning films. And Laura, tell us a little bit more about some of your previous work real quick. And also, when Hillary came to you with this project, what drew you to it?
Thank you. And Brian, yeah, I'm realizing more than a few years now, right? Going back to my first film.
Right.
My documentaries have been character portraits that, focus and enter, really deeply into people's lives, who are all going through challenges, and sort of through getting to know their stories, like the backdrops of their lives show a lot of the systemic flaws in this country and so on. And my most recent feature doc, which came out earlier this year, is called The Cave of Adullam, and that is a piece that I hope everyone will see. It's about a martial arts transformational training academy for boys in Detroit. And I realized, just even right as you're asking me this, Brian, that my films have focused, so much on people, because that's what resonates with humans, and is what each of us is going through. And that through this project, it really drew things to such a global scale. And, anything that I can do to make a difference and basically help protect Mother Nature, I'm here for. And so I think that, we're all aligned in that mission. And yeah, this film really focuses on Sarah and Stephanie to start with, and the seeds that they've planted with this program that they have helped create. And what I love about it is that it shows the difference that, in this case, two women who are leaders in their own communities and organizations, the meeting of their minds, and then, loop in Hillary and now myself. It's like each of us can make such a difference. And then when we join together, those circles just keep expanding and spiraling out further. And so I love that. I feel like all of that is encompassed in this conversation and in this one short film.
Great. And real quickly, I just want to ask Sarah, have you been in a film before? And what was it like for this experience, having a filmmaker come out and talk with you in your community?
We've been in a couple of films. So Practical Farmers of Iowa gets asked to do documentaries like this. I think we were in one like 10 years ago about food culture. Okay. Yeah, so we do work with farmers daily, and we do try to see which ones want to be on camera, which ones are ready to tell their story. Just like Laura, we want to feature those humans because they're the best way to connect with the other humans, to get the humans to make differences. So, I mean, yes, we are definitely humbled that we were chosen to be part of this project and show our stuff off. And the farmers are just, I think, excited to share more. So there can be more investment, more change, more, ways for them to share what's going on.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's what's so good about the film, is it really becomes a character-driven story, even though it's about what companies are doing here. And Laura, you did such a great job of working with Sarah to find the right people to talk to and get this story across. Stephanie, I wanted to ask you a little bit, kind of looking at the big picture, like, why is our food supply at risk as it relates to how we've historically farmed in America? And this could seem like a problem that's maybe just for the agricultural community to solve, but obviously Unilever thinks it's important for your business as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. As the globe is and the world is getting warmer, the growing regions are changing. So in areas where they're growing certain crops right now, we may no longer in 5 years, quick and early as 5 years, 10 years down the road, no longer be able to grow those crops. And if that is what we're relying on for food, obviously that's going to change diets, that's going to change availability, that's going to change what we can eat. So as a company who looks to, within as we source as locally as possible. So we're not wanting to import ingredients from other countries. We want to try to source within the US for our US products here. It's very important for us to keep those growing regions available for us and healthy and able to get those get those ingredients into our factories so we can turn around and make products for people within that. So that's kind of where it is we keep going further and further. Things are shifting north, it seems like, as we get warmer. And you're going to see those changes come if we don't come together and make bigger changes together as a world.
And is this something that you think the work you're doing together can inspire other businesses to copy and replicate in some ways?
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason we jumped at the opportunity to do this, to talk about our program and to do this documentary, is to share what we're doing. And I've always been an open, come join us, please come join our program. If not, I'll meet with other companies and tell them how we did this and how we got started and encourage them to start something similar and serve as a sounding board to colleagues at other companies within that. My view on this, and I think it goes really simply kind of what both Hillary and Laura said, if I just focus only on, or if Unilever only focuses on our sourcing regions or our little program here or those areas, we're not going to make a big change. But if we can all come together and we all overlap, we're going to make a much bigger change than if we just do it solely by ourselves. So within that.
And Sarah, as someone not out there in the agricultural field, it feels like something that's very regional. And I'm wondering, can this partnership that you've got with Unilever and Practical Farmers of Iowa be replicated in other parts of the country too? Is that something you're also working on?
For sure. So although Iowa's in our name, we do work with companies and with Unilever outside of just Iowa in basically the states surrounding Iowa. I wouldn't say that we're going to start Practical Farmers of California anytime soon, mostly because we do see the value in those communities of practice on the ground being very important to building the lasting change. So yes, we can consult on those growing systems in other parts of the country, but we really need to actually physically be there, have meetings, have the meetups, talk to the farmers, hold their hand and visit fields when something goes wrong with the practices that they're trying to add to their system. And so we can, talk with Unilever on, okay, if you have this project in Canada, you need to find an organization like Practical Farmers. And these are the core things that we offer. And so let's stand up one of those organizations there. And then Unilever can invest in that farm-based organization in those other communities.
That's great. And it seems like in watching the film that a lot of it is so much about your relationship with those farmers and building that trust with them. But you also get a sense that there's maybe some skepticism within the community about these kind of practices. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you think this project you're doing and films like this maybe can be brought to a younger generation that might be coming up within the field to take over, and if this is something that could be that can grow?
So the younger generation of farmers, I think, have heard over and over about cover crops and the need for regenerative ag practices enough that at this point it's not a hard sell for that under 35-year-old, I'd say. But for those that are like my age and older, they've been signaled to farm in a way that's yield at all costs. The market's telling them grow corn and soybeans at all costs, and who cares if we lose a little bit of soil. And so now I think their identity is being challenged with, oh man, the way I thought I should have been farming is actually not good long term, and I better start getting changes on the ground so I can mitigate and handle and adapt for what climate change or crazy weather, right, is going to bring my fields, because they're filling those really large rainfalls and they're seeing that erosion even on flat ground. So I'd say the group of farmers that were maybe thinking they were going to age out soon and not have to make major changes are probably struggling with this new identity of farming. So like we see Doug in the film, who's already sort of internalized this and realized, oh, I actually need to do this. I want to do it. I'm inspired by doing cover crops. I like this green, and this helps meet my identity where it should be, which is passing on this really healthy farm to the next generation. So like, that's the conversations that we have. And that's why we can't, just become Practical Farmers of California. Like, we have to be here locally so we can have those conversations and then support that farmer in that transition.
That's great. Laura,
Brian, sorry,
yeah.
I know you're about to ask me if I could just chime in quickly.
Sure.
Sarah, behind the scenes, Sarah, introduced us to the farmers that we filmed with, and then we went off and were inside of their lives for a couple days. And when she wasn't there, it was so apparent. I mean, they salute you so much and talked about how much you have helped them, and in some ways helped really save their farms. So, the impact was really, really clear.
That's great. And that comes through. It's a real testament to the work you've done there, Sarah, and Stephanie, also how you're supporting that too. Laura, what else did you learn on working on this project, in addition to how respected Sarah is, and the fact that the farmers are doing this? But I'm assuming as a filmmaker, you go there and you learned a lot, and maybe some things surprised you even.
Absolutely. As somebody who lives in a huge metropolis, although, I mentioned Mother Nature and I feel very attuned to her, and I'm very conscious about what I eat, or so I thought. I was really surprised at how little I know about food production and even cover crops was a new concept to me. So I was starting what I realized with a very elementary understanding here. And that's something I love in documentary filmmaking, is I think that you can feel some of the inquiries and just the pulse that drives through a film, where, like, if I'm truly curious, even though I'm not in the film, you can feel some of that, I think, really driving the project. And so I hope that transmits and comes across. And yeah, I really admired Sarah. Sorry to sweat you the whole time, but I will. You're just such an amazing force, and you're such an example. I love people who are really doing the work and keeping it real. And this isn't in the film, but I remember you speaking about some indigenous farming practices and agricultural practices, including the Three Sisters, when we were there. And it's just something that you mentioned as we were chatting, but it's about growing three crops together. And again, this is an ancient practice, right? And that those crops will then naturally nourish and protect one another. And so for me, this was also, it's like, while these are new practices, it's also something that's more so a reminder of a return to what the soil and the land really wants. And so there's, again, I think, you guys can speak to that better than I can, but that was a really key takeaway for me. And also and this wasn't a surprise, but just making this project and spending a few days out in Iowa, it really reaffirmed for me how connected we all are, as people, as a global community, and then again, as what we're hopefully nourishing ourselves with.
That's great. And Laura, you did such a great job of capturing that. Real quickly though, Sarah and/or Stephanie, did you have any response back to the things that Laura was just bringing up?
I've definitely a couple of things. So Laura's comment on these are actually older practices coming back. It really is. We've had one of the farmers that we work with that's been in our program a long time. They had planted a small grain during the summer, and it was something that wasn't very common. So you get other farmers driving by and looking at it, and they're like, what is this? And somebody came by and said, oh, my grandfather grew that way back in the, and those are the things that we're kind of getting, and Sarah can talk to this better than I can, of kind of taking some of these practices that were done before, we'll call it the easy button days of with the current technologies of being able to spray and till and things like that. So if you think about going back and how things were done 20s, 40s, 50s, and what that was done off the Dust Bowl, that's what we're starting to try to get back to. But the other piece Laura hit on is she's an average consumer. Most consumers have no idea where their food comes from, how it's made, where it's grown. And that's also a real challenge from the brands aspect, as my brands are starting to, and the Unilever brands, as we're investing more in regenerative agriculture practices with the farmers, with organizations such as PFI. How do we tell the story and how do we educate consumers? Because it's not a simple, easy concept that most people are going to get immediately. And I like to joke, how do you put cover crops in a 30-second commercial and make it sexy? and people understand it. It's not easy. And that's something our brands are also struggling with, is how do we communicate this? How, what do consumers understand, and where that education level is, and where we need to bring consumers along with us. That is something you're going to see more. It's definitely from our brands, especially over the next few years, as we even invest in this even more. So trying to help consumers understand these concepts.
That's great. And Sarah?
Yeah, just on the branding of it to consumers. I mean, sometimes people in rural Iowa don't even understand how food is grown, and they are right next to it. I mean, like 90% of the food we consume in Iowa is imported, and some of the products from commodity corn and soybeans go into like a Hellmann's mayonnaise, but a lot of it goes into ethanol and for livestock feed. So it's not surprising that actually Laura or other even like rural consumers don't even know how food is produced. And so I think that's then allowed farmers to kind of farm as whatever the market tells them, because there's not that feedback from their neighbors to say, well, how was this grown? I see you didn't have a cover crop out there this year, Bob. Like, what happened, right? So that feedback's not there, where that might have been there 100 years ago. So, then I feel like our job is to help give those farmers permission to say, okay, the market's not telling me to plant cover crops, but I think I should. How do I do it? And then I hope I'm rewarded for it. I hope somebody cares. So when we have movies like this, then it's like to the farmers, like, oh, somebody's paying attention. Somebody actually cares that I'm doing this great thing for Mother Nature. So, it's really a good benefit to feature, the humans in the system that are actually laboring and trying to make a difference, and spotlight them for all the great things that they're trying to accomplish.
Thanks. And I think that's what's great about this, and what's great about good brand storytelling is what it can do when it's not just the 30 seconds commercial, which they have their place. But as Stephanie brought up, it's hard to tell these genuine stories in that short of a period of time. And having a great filmmaker like Laura work with great subjects like yourselves, I don't know anything about food production, and I learned a lot through this film, but it's also a different thing than a commercial. So how do you get it out there? And that's what I wanted to ask Hillary. So what's next with these films and the series, and how are you going to get them out to people and make a difference?
Yeah, so that's the big question. We are working on it. We're really building a distribution plan from the ground up. Full disclosure, we're working with Brian. We can pretend we're not, but
myself and Marcus Peterzel, who's part of the community at Brand Storytelling as well.
Yes. And but we're borrowing from a few tricks from my time in the documentary world, which means that our audience is really business leaders and sustainability leaders. It's less like Gen Pop. And so we're working to build a grassroots campaign where we're really reaching out to the business and sustainability community. We're working to set up tons of different screenings, and then we're going to build towards a moment in Q1 that will be, the big moment when it's all available, and of course surround it with some paid media and some PR and a robust social strategy. But we're, trying to grassroots it and get it out there to our core audience in as big of a way as possible. And we're working with all of the companies, as I mentioned, who are in the film. So the series is actually 6 different films. And each one talks about a different company or multiple companies that are working together to meet their climate pledge goals. And so we're working with the companies too to make sure we get them out, in a big way.
So working together with companies in multiple ways, both behind the scenes and in getting the films out. Great. Sarah, a lot of people, they're watching this and learning, like myself, for the first time about these issues. And if they're watching this Q&A today, whether it's a business or just a regular consumer, and they're wondering how they can help solve the problem with farming in our country, what's the one thing you would like to say to them, or 1 or 2 things you'd like to say to them that they could do today?
So any company buying corn or soybeans in the Corn Belt should be demanding cover crops on those fields and paying farmers to do it. Number 1. So like Stephanie said, we want lots of friends to come along and join this journey. It doesn't have to be with Practical Farmers as the implementer. It could just be with other folks in their supply chain. But if we really want to have a different farming system, we have to send a different signal to the farmers and share with them to make that change. So that would be for the business leaders. For the consumers, I'd say it's time to study up on what you're consuming. You know, your dollar has a lot of impact. And so if you want to start shortening the distance that that dollar travels, yes, you could buy hyper local and learn what that farmer's doing, but you also could pick brands on the shelves that you learn about and here are trying to invest in these different regenerative ag practices. So I'd say that those are probably the two things, sending those market signals.
That's great to know. Thank you. And thanks everyone for your time today. Thanks for making this great film and bringing it to us at Brand Storytelling as one of the first premieres as well. And I've really appreciated the time speaking with you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Drew Parkhill from Brand Storytelling.